How's it going, lad?
All right, mate. How are you?
Sound as a pound. Sound as a pound.
Good.
Hang on a minute. I was, Julian, till I moved.
Oh, it's all right, mate.
That should do. Should do it.
We're good.
That's good. How are you?
I'm all right, mate. I've had a bit of a headache all morning. I don't know if it's lack of sleep or not, but I mean, headache's a headache, isn't it? But yeah, I'm good, mate. I'm all right.
Good. A lot going on, so let's get stuck in. I wasn't going to do any videos because, you know, I'm away on next. Well, by the time this video goes out, I'll be gone.
Yeah.
But I thought people are emailing, having a bit of a moan, and I should really address a few things and then put it to bed. Put a few things to bed. We're going to go into heavy stuff in the middle of the video, but Jake Paul won last night on points against Anderson Silva. What did you think?
Well, you know my answer there. You just give me some news I didn't know. I remember Anderson Silva in the UFC quite a while ago. He was a hell of a fighter. I don't follow this stuff that closely, as you know. I heard that Anderson Silva, initially they weren't going to do the fight because he'd actually been knocked out twice in sparring, and then he said something to him, a language interpretation. I just came across that story because I thought it was quite interesting. And I also know he's 47 years old. And listen, I got nothing against Jake Paul. He's an entrepreneur. He's an innovator. He's making absolute millions, but he's not a boxer. It's about as simple as that.
Yeah. Would Anderson Silva have got the nod anyway?
Well, exactly. I've not seen the fight. I mean, Jake Paul, what I will say is I've seen a couple of highlights of his. He can throw a right hand, whether he's a school boxer, has zero pedigree or not. He knows how to throw a right hand. And he's probably quite a tough kid, actually. There's something about him what tells you that him and his brother are quite tough kids, albeit very, very rich. Don't mean they can't fight. So, look, it's all good. I mean, what did he do? Let me guess. Did he call out Tommy Fury?
Yeah, I think so, yeah. Not in ring, I'm not sure. I think he did have to say he'll fight Tommy Fury. Look, let him get at it. They've had enough PR out of it, and let's have it put to bed once and for all. Tommy Fury and Jake Paul, or Jake Paul, Tommy Fury. Put us out of our misery, or just fight somebody, Tommy. You know what I mean?
Let them fight. Let's find out who's the king of the YouTubers. Neither of them are serious professional boxers, are they?
No. Okay. Joe Fournier's circling for a fight with KSI. Billionaire playboy, billions in bank. What's he want to fight for?
Listen, we might as well get Brian Potter out of, remember Phoenix Knights in wheelchair, Peter Kay. Let's get Brian Potter, throw him in the mix. Let's get all these guys who want to talk about being fighters. Now, Joe Fournier, I don't really know him. Was he the guy who fought David Hay and had some kind of unbeaten record, but wasn't that good? Is that him?
Yeah, I bought a ranking with WBA, didn't you? You know you did, Joe. You know you bought that ranking off Gilberto Mendoza. Stomp my car, you didn't. Do you know where you were on about Brian Potter there? Listen.
Yeah.
Do not mess with the committee men. I've had run-ins with committee men. I'm signed eye from everywhere. I can't go in a working men's club anywhere for a cheap pint. Do not mess with the committee. They will turn up with their white socks on, black shoes, black trousers, backy, top pocket, Brilla creamed hair. Porky is still banned. You're signed eye for life. They are the mafia. They're the mafia.
I was going to say they're like a poor version of the British Boxing Board of Control committee men at Working Men's Club, but the Board of Control are probably poor versions of them, aren't they?
Listen, mate, my dad always used to say this to me. You know, committee men used to say, yes, they're out 14 sessions a week. They've got right lifestyles, and they go home for the meals, don't they?
The wives put up with a lot, mate, don't they?
One of them used to go by football pitch when we were kids playing on field, and we used to call him Permanent. And my mate says, why do you call him permanent? He walked by with some permos over there. Why do you call him that? I said, because he's permanently going to club. You know, well, they're all his life. He ended up a landlord. And he loved pubs that much.
Got his name on chair.
Yeah. Well done to Adam Booth, the Dark Lord. Well done to Adam Booth on IFL coming out and saying, listen, you lot need to start asking proper questions, all of you. Well done, Adam Booth. My feeling, my sentiments exactly, or feelings, whatever it is, I agree with him.
Not seen it. Always liked Adam Booth. I like the way he articulates himself.
Yeah,
I like Adam Booth's philosophy on coaching. And I just think more and more people are actually now coming out and saying this, aren't they? They're saying, listen, you're not asking the right questions. And it's not having a dig at Coogan or any of these guys, but they believe they're asking tough questions, but they're actually not. You could literally, all of us, fans, people who used to be in the game, whatever, we could all ask those 5 killer questions that we want answered, because not one of those killer questions has been asked. I mean, one of the questions I would ask is, where does this fighter come from who's struggling with journeyman to knocking out former world champions, obliterating them? Where's this massive improvement come from? That would be a question I would want to know.
Yeah, but we'll come to that in a bit. But Adam Booth, well done.
Yeah.
Well done. Martin McCauley. Billy Nelson been screaming about him for a few years. I know a few other people who've said he's pretty good. Martin McCauley beat that Yoker, didn't he? None of them. Why is he never? He's always like the ugly sister of the heavyweight chat, isn't he, at the moment? He never gets mentioned, does he? They're not queuing up for Martin McCauley, are they? Do you feel that Billy Nelson's can feel a bit badly done to? I do.
I think so as well. I know Billy. Billy's an absolute gentleman. Spent some time down at St. Joseph's, not St. Joseph's, down in Glasgow with him. Good guy. Used to speak to him on the phone all the time. But he says it like it is. Billy Nelson doesn't kind of dance around things. McCauley is part of the Who Needs Him club. Yeah. I mean, can you imagine now when you talk about Martin McCauley, you got a guy who can fight a little bit. He's a bit awkward. He's one of those fighters who doesn't do anything particularly well. He does everything all right, but he's just awkward and strong, and he comes forward. And you look at a McCauley, who wants to fight him? What have you got to win by beating him? What have you got to gain by beating him?
No, really, because he's
nothing.
He's not. He's like a Louis Ortiz type, isn't he? A few years ago.
Yeah, he's just one of those. He's like part of the Who Needs Him club. I mean, can you imagine now if Harold Bomber Graham was around today, he wouldn't get to fight for anything.
Well, he didn't when he was here, did he? Ben and Eubank didn't want a good aim, did they?
Well, exactly. It was avoided then when there was more of a culture for top fighters to fight each other. Yeah. So had Bomber Graham been around today in 2022, I'd have been sat on the sofa for bloody years, wouldn't he?
Yeah. And I just think that Martin McCauley now, that you've beaten an Olympic gold medalist, and they shut him down. They've shut him down and they've said, oh, he's going to be bogeyman now, isn't he?
Yeah, it's just the trend of boxing, isn't it? As we've said for so long now. Yeah. It's some of these fighters, some of these world champions and top fighters and names can fight. We're not saying that they can't fight. That's a ludicrous thing to say. But what we're saying is Reg Guttridge always used to say it, that it was known that there was American journeymen on the circuit and in the gym as sparring partners who were better than some of the world-class fighters. And that's the case now. There are fighters out there who are really, really good, but they'll never get their opportunity. I mean, he did get his opportunity of some sorts, but look at McKinson, just got shipped abroad, didn't he? Against Virgil Ortiz, in against his top fighter, got beat, just forgotten about now with McKinson. And he's just, let's not bring him back in the mix. Let's not put him back in the mix. It just stinks, doesn't it? And if you're a fighter like McKinson, you take another fight at late notice at some point, you get beat, and then you pack in because you think, what am I doing with this sport?
Yeah. Tyson Fury is doing a cover version of Sweet Caroline for mental health. Do you feel that it's just the same old routine of whenever there's a fight coming up, this same old? I'm not having a go at anybody that does some stuff for charity, but didn't he say he don't want to speak about his charity work when he was asked about that 7 million? And then we've had this 10 grand thrown about this that he did to that lady, which was a brilliant thing to do. Now this, do you think it's all a bit repetitive and it's the same old script? They're running out of ideas.
I mean, I like Fury. I want to see him in the ring. I don't care what reason somebody has for giving for charity. If they're giving for charity, the outcome's the same. It's such a brilliant, positive thing. So I won't be really critical as such, but I always wonder, and we've had this conversation before, it's like when people video themselves kind of like giving money to the homeless and stuff. It's like, just do it. Just do it under the radar. Just be a little bit discreet about it.
I felt, go on, so yeah.
You know what I mean? Think about that person you're videoing. I hate that. I hate it. Not saying Fury does that, by the way. When
I was on Twitter, I gave Josh Wales some money that I got from that clothing thing deal. We had a clothing deal with Kay Fisher, and I give Josh Wales every bean that I made off it. I put it on Twitter, and after I thought, obviously we're for his gym for some plastering and that. I thought it would cringe. Like, you should just do it and not have to say it, shouldn't you? Really, but so I'm a bit hypocritical there, but. It wasn't 10 grand though.
No, you're not hypocritical, mate. We've all done it. I did something previously once, and you get a check for it, a charity thing. I won't go into it. And it's a bit like, there's got to raise the awareness. But I'm just talking about, people who every single act is kind of scrutinized. Just. I don't know, start a foundation for young people. Or...
Write a check out your 120 million. You're telling everybody you've got it bank net. Write a check out. Right, and do it on quiet.
I always remember they never presented the details, but it was Chris Evans from the Breakfast, who used to be on the Breakfast Show. He gave an absolute enormous amount of his personal wealth to charity, various charities. And I just thought, and he didn't. Of course, there was some publicity around it, but a lot of the details were not presented, and it was a massive amount, big percentage of what he actually had. And he said, "You know what?" He says, "The people need it more than I do, but it's also going to keep me hungry. It's going to make me have to go out and earn another million, another 5 million, because I want to live this lifestyle." I thought that was a class thing to do. You know what I'm like? I'm a bit of a socialist at times. I find it vulgar that people can actually get paid 100 million for a fight. I think it's vulgar, but it's the world, isn't it? People do.
Yeah. Spoke to Peter Fury yesterday. He's taking a few months off till next year. Savannah's not retiring. She's going to go again. She's having a long rest. Hughie's having a rest while May. He's gone for his gold injections in Harley Street for long COVID and that. Oh, it crossbar. So he just said Pete wants a break from boxing. He don't not bothered about social media. And he does right on that. It's hard. He's got a lot on his plate, anyway, all the fighters and stuff. And sometimes you need to get away from it. Don't you? What do you think? You think Savannah's doing right coming back?
Well, I think definitely all need a rest. Take some time out from boxing. As a coach, I know what it's like myself. I've taken the next 30 years off coaching. It just gets you to a stage. It's difficult day in, day out. And I know people won't mind me saying so, and I mean this with respect. I physically started struggling coaching in the last few years. I've got arthritis, I've got various injuries, I've got some operations due. Physically, as a coach, the boxer has a camp and they get time off. But physically, as a coach, it knackers you. Now, Peter Fury is not 25, is he? Peter Fury is a guy of a certain age. And he'll be a fit guy, but it's physically hard being a coach, doing the pads, running around all the time, in the cold gyms, traveling all over. It's exhausting. I did that on top of a full-time job, but the last few years, just knackered. So it's not just boxers who need a break, it's coaches. And I think that's one of the reasons the Shane McGuigans are so successful, because he's full of energy as well. He's a fit guy, he's a young fit lad, he can deal with that. remember Keith Tate showing me once his elbows were battered. He's just operations on his elbows, countless operations from doing 30, 40 years of pads every single night. It's difficult. Mentally, it's difficult. Peter Fury, take some time off. Savannah Marshall, I want to see her back in a ring. She's only had 13 fights. She didn't put her best performance forward. She got beaten by the better fighter on the night. It happens, no big deal. Come back, get active, get back on the horse, only if you truly want to do it. If you truly want to fight, carry on. If you know, if you don't, and you don't want to go through all the nonsense and the politics, and you're just not feeling it anymore, walk away, do something else. More life than boxing.
Yeah, there is. Right then, the big one. Conor Benn, license situation, border control, and media being weak, two dope tests a lot. What do you think, Julian? What now we've had time to digest everybody's comments and all the vileness? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, just like yourself, anybody who's watching this now, they need to realize that I've no script in front of me. You've got no script in front of you. We're just chatting about stuff. Sometimes we get the odd thing wrong. Hands up, got the odd thing wrong. I thought the license issue, the whatever it was, the technicality could have been part of the adverse findings to say no, it was something completely different. So fair enough. But when you get, most things right, there are those people out there who'll never tell you, well, actually, that's a good point that you got that right. You got some great people on your channel, some brilliant people, but you always get that one who must literally watch these videos for an hour and a half and try and find like one tiny thing technically to say, oh, it wasn't an IBF title he won in 1995. It was a WBO or whatever. There's always that one person who tried to pull you up. It's
well, what it is, you see, once this is cameras rolling in front of me, or if we're out filming and somebody's filming me, I have to think on my feet, don't I? Sometimes I don't get everything right. I see people make mistakes on I saw George Groves in that James English interview saying that he got stopped in 8th against Froch. Now he got stopped in 9th.
9th round, yeah.
And he went 8th in the second one. So even George gets confused and he win the fight.
It's easily done, isn't it? But I mean, where do you want to start? The Conor Benn thing. I mean, so what we don't know, and there's a couple of people got different opinions. We don't know if the boxing board of control was informed about the first failure. You'd expect there were, but I've heard a couple of things online saying that there might not have been. I don't know if it's a timeline thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. They were definitely informed about the second one, but we know that the fighters and obviously the event organisers will have been informed. I don't know why the board wouldn't have been informed, but what they're saying is that the first failure was in July. Yeah.
25th.
Yeah. I'm just going to suggest something now. All right. Bear with me. Because again, I'm thinking on my feet. We've talked about this a lot. So what we keep hearing, right? Think of a timeline. So anybody who thinks give the kid a fair chance, you're condemning a man. First of all, you and I have said this. VADA and the British Boxing Board of Control have condemned him. Not Russell Hartley and Julian McGowan, because they pulled the fight and he's had adverse testing. So this one, you and I, in disguise in the VADA labs, trying to condemn the kid. He's condemned himself, hasn't he?
Yeah.
So that's the first thing. So just think about the timeline, right? You start to get tested more as you move up the world rankings and you become a bigger name. Yeah. Conor Benn early on in his career probably was tested, but not that much. Trust me. I know how often fighters get tested. Like fighters I've trained only got tested for British title fights. That's one thing, right? So Conor Benn gets dropped from the WBC rankings because he doesn't enroll to VADA. Now that was early on in the year. So we're on a timeline now. And then all of a sudden, he says, I'm going to have to look at this again. Then he gets a doctor on board, which this doctor he makes out, I was only met once. Well, not according to Dr. Usman Sajid. So he gets a doctor on board. Now, all of a sudden, you've had to sign up, not because you voluntarily did it, because the WBC rules state you have to sign up to the clean VADA boxing program.
Yeah.
So he signs up for it. Yeah. Now, just let's speculate and say that he had started taking certain banned substances. You might want somebody on board who's an expert in bypassing these adverse findings. You might, I'm just speculating, it would be wise if you were taking something you shouldn't to get someone on board. And now there's this doctor who's testosterone replacement therapist, hormone replacement therapist, who was said online, easy to get past these tests. You'd have to be an idiot to get past these tests. So if I was of a nature that I want to potentially take things I shouldn't take, what would I do? I'd get an expert on board, because now I'm fair game for VADA. So all of a sudden, we get someone on board. Potentially, speculating, they get it wrong. Yeah, so okay, they fail a test in July, end of August. That test result, they get notified end of August. It's a long time from August to the fight, October, whatever it was. What's going on? What are things pointing to now? We get this zero testing or very little testing early on in his career, poor performances. You start to get up a next level. You start to physically change. Your performances start to improve. Your power becomes almost freakish. Yeah, we're seeing visible changes. Sean, the dripping tap, pointed this out. We're seeing visible changes. We get a doctor on board. Now we've signed up for VADA. We have an expert on board who says it's so easy to bypass. And then we get, apparently it's not that easy, is it? And then we get 2 adverse findings. What does that picture, before we condemn the man and people say, oh, there's only a tiny amount of in the trace, etc. What picture is that starting to build up? That's quite a damning indictment if you look at those facts. I'm not suggesting outright, well, actually, I'm suggesting he's failed the drugs test, because he has. He's failed too. But I'm speculating about the other stuff. I'm speculating about the improved performances. I'm saying maybe there's something else going on. What else is he taking? You know, what else is he taking?
Well, there's 2 dope tests being failed now. And do you feel that they were arrogant, saying, oh, we'll get that first one squashed, and they carried on doing what they were doing? But what about the going on TV and not mentioning about these 2 dope tests? And they've gone on TV in fight week and people were booking hotels and that. Do you feel that the criminal proceedings are going to be involved? Because I'm hearing that people in boxing, and I don't know who, whether it's rival promoters or the board or other people, I'm hearing that this could be a police matter. And this has come from because people who know barristers and QCs who work at the board, and some of them used to be prosecutors as well, didn't they? They're saying this should be a police matter, a criminal investigation. Do you think that could happen over what's gone on with 20,000 people? Because is it 14,000 booked hotels out of the 20,000?
I'm just going to say there's a financial impact here. There's sponsors involved and everything. So what you've basically done is you've tried to cover up the fact that an event was very likely going to get pulled. Yeah, you've tried to cover this up. You've got people, as you've just said, spent a lot of money.
Well, they all had to go to London, didn't they, to no avail, didn't they, at the weekend?
And no matter what we think, you know, they're not all A-listers, and they're not all the beautiful Essex crowd. There are working men, working women who will have bought their partners tickets for Christmas presents, birthday presents, to go see their hero, Conor Benn, Oscar Shubank Jr. And this was an iconic moment. There will be people who were secondary fans. There will have been people taking their parents, like myself, who remembered that first fight. We're at that first fight, and everyone's bought into this. And they have tried to still make this fight happen. And in terms of you saying there could be, you know, criminal proceedings, if you've tried to cover up foul play, and we don't know the details of the first adverse test, it's a bit sketchy right now, but this just stinks, doesn't it? The whole thing stinks. And anybody, honestly, this sounds really strong, but those people, and you get a lot in your comments, who are defending Conor Benn, you need to have a look at yourselves, because this is really bad. This is, I've had people say to me 2 things. Well, they're all on it. First of all, they're not all on it. I hate when people say that. But they're not all on it. There's a lot of good, clean athletes out there. all right, we do think there's a bad problem. There's a good number of people taking peds. We absolutely, but don't start saying that they're all on it.
Yeah.
But the second thing for me, which you knew my views on him dropping down to 157 and limiting the rehydration. I said someone's going to get hurt, and this was before we knew about the doping. And you know what? The worst thing for me about this whole thing, right? And I'm going to point right at Team Ben, and I'm going to point right at the promoters and the border control have to take some of this on the chin. We all saw that photograph of Chris Eubank Jr. emaciated, looking so ill. So they knew about the drugs test, the adverse findings. The promoters and the boxer knew about 2 adverse findings, and they were still dragging that kid down to 157. Now that's a scumbag thing to do, absolute scumbag. At least the one thing you would have done is you'd have said, listen, there's a bit of few technicalities around this. We want this fight to go ahead, and Eubank Jr. wrong, but he wanted to still fight. Boxers still want to fight, right? But they didn't even. They've no comment on this. We know that they didn't even have the conversation about. I'll tell you what. We'll make it right. There's an adverse finding. You don't have to do the 157, Chris. You can come in at 160. And we know they didn't have that conversation because we've all seen the photos of Eubank saying, I've made the weight, or it was 1.5 pounds off 157. So the absolute scumbags were still trying to drag that kid down to that weight, knowing what they knew about the load of gloves. I think that's abhorrent, and I think that's potentially, in my opinion, be careful what I say. I think that is a police matter, and I think it is a criminal matter because that kid was going to get hurt.
Okay. Do you feel that Calla could have done more to stop it? And do you feel that he's got off scot-free? Because Eddie's taking all the brunt in Eddie Hills. Eduardo Hills.
Eduardo. Absolutely. Listen, Calla, you're no angel, mate. You're absolutely no angel. You got to look out for your fighter. It's as simple as that.
I think he's got off scot-free, I think, Calla, because he could have just said, no, failed dope test. We're pulling it. I've got to look after my guy. Now, Calla looks after his guys and all that. Edward Gutnick, or George Groves, put in whatever. He's a cabbage now, isn't he?
Yeah.
Calla's sending him money every week. I bet he's struggling on benefits.
He will be struggling on benefits, mate. Listen, Calla Sowland, I don't know him. I don't really know too much about him. But what I do know, he's not going to stop his fighter fighting somebody who's failed tests, getting dragged down to 157. If he's putting YouTubers in boxing rings who aren't even trained fighters, and potentially we could have a real issue there. This is not somebody who's concerned about the safety of boxers. Trust me.
Okay. All right, then. Well, we'll leave it at that. We know about the media, don't we? They're not going to ask any questions. Coogan I've got a lot of time for Coogan because he's put the effort in and he's been bounced around for the last 10, 12 years, all over the place. And he gets a lot of stick. He's very patient in front of the camera, and he never loses his cool. Very rare you see him lose his cool. But he's spineless. That's the only thing about it. He's spineless. But he's needing to do this to win. I understand that he needs access and that, but he's supposed to be a journalist with a big platform. He's the in-house guy now, and I think it's become a bit embarrassing now, isn't it, really, for him? That's my opinion.
It's a double-edged sword. I mean, first of all, I like Coogan's.
He's in a tight spot. He's in a tight spot, though, isn't he?
He's in a difficult place because it's not like he's an independent journalist who came through the ranks covering everything. Yeah. Coogan was really helped by Matchroom, wasn't he, in the early days?
Oh, yeah. But they needed each other then, didn't they?
They needed each other. So he's in a really difficult spot. People will, they've got other social media sites now what are growing as well, and it's, IFL is still by far the biggest, but you've got other people coming through. And it's one of those, isn't it? It's like, I like his interview style, Coogan. I think he's got a nice, relaxed interview style. He's not asked the challenging questions, but I guess everything will come out. But just the final thing on this, it's not black and white, is it? It's going to remain muddy. We're saying we'll get all the details, but you're probably going to get some under the radar retrospective ban and blah, 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 blah. And people are then going to turn around and forget all this, you know. But
Nigel Benn forgot, didn't he, when he said, "Oh yeah, we've known for 3 months." They were on about the other test, wasn't it? And you said, "Oh, he meant 3 weeks." Well,
did he?
He didn't even tell it the truth, wasn't he? But he's
He
probably had
won't,
too many
yeah.
punches to head on him. All right, let's draw a line under that bit then. Johnny Fisher, 7-0 now, eating his Chinese again in dressing room after. Is he getting a bit gimmicky now, this, and a bit rest WWE, and what's going on here with this Bosch?
All right, I'm gonna give you my appraisal of Johnny Fisher. Okay, that won't surprise you. I've only seen the highlights of DAZN, just like a lot of people who are talking now. I've unsubscribed until they deal with this other situation in a much more professional way and start to give us the fights we want. I won't be subscribing. So I've only seen the highlights of the show, so I'm not going to comment too much. Johnny Fisher can't really fight, mate. He's a strong kid. He's heavy-handed. He's fit. He's game. He's presentable. He has a good personality that people want to buy into him. Right? All right. That's that. The way his balance and everything, he really can't fight. Or he can't box. He can fight. All right. He knocked on my door. I wouldn't want to go on the cobbles with him, but he can't box, can't Johnny Fisher.
That might come late on. Mark Tibbs might teach him.
I think you do need an element of pedigree. I really do, because I've said this to Max, right? When you got a kid who's been all these fighters, Floyd Mayweather, right? I'll pick out Floyd because we've all seen the amateur videos of Floyd, 7-8-year-old at the barbecue with the gloves on. The Mayweathers fighting at the bar. They were born with boxing gloves on. Yeah. Right? You get a kid who's in his 20s or whatever age, and he comes from a different discipline, a completely different sport like rugby. You can't learn what Tyson Fury's been doing for 20 years. You can't learn that. Boxing's not something you can't. So just to slightly correct you there, Russell, you can't learn to box. You can't learn to box in 2 or 3 years. It doesn't happen. What you can do is become a little bit better, a little bit fitter, a little bit stronger, and that's it. But you can't really learn to box. You can't learn the subtleties of boxing. It's an art. It's a discipline. So it is a gimmick.
Yeah.
He might end up winning some belt against somebody who's not that great. But the first time Johnny Fisher is presented with a feint, a double jab, a little slip, a little bit of a pivot and step off, and a kid who's just got a little bit of ring IQ, he'll get really badly exposed because you can't learn this stuff.
So what do you think they're going to do with him? Because he sells tickets, just prop the shows up and keep him at bottom line?
Yeah, I mean, I just saw, I didn't really know the guy was. The only, perhaps I'm being unfair to the guy who's been in with a few people apparently. I saw that guy he beat through a right hand, and he didn't know how to throw a right hand. It was like a slap. It was like a weird punch. And this is just me. You can watch a guy in 5-10 seconds and go, that kid can't even throw a right hand. That kid's got 2 left feet. So the kid he beat, the white collar level of boxers, and people, he went 4 rounds with David Adelaide, and not interested, right? It's white collar boxing, and good luck to him. He seems a nice kid, good, funny. Good luck to him. Bosch is a bit annoying, but it's a gimmick. It's a circus act, and listen, what's Eddie going to do realistically? He's selling thousands of tickets, this kid, isn't he? He's not going to get him beat. He's going to milk that kid as much as he can. He can't rush him anyway because he is an absolute novice. He probably should have another 20, 30 fights at this level, but he won't, and he will get really badly exposed, mate, honestly.
Okay. Katie Taylor, that was a sparring session, wasn't it, her fight? I don't want to cover
it.
I want to talk about it.
Only seen bits of it. You know me, love Katie Taylor. She's definitely on the slide, but she's still brilliant. She's still the sort of best in the division. I like fighters who unify and stay at the same division and don't weight hop for the sake of it, picking up cheap belts. I think she's brilliant. The opponent wasn't great. She's entitled to, she's fought some really great opposition. She's entitled to 1 or 2 fights that are not the hardest. And I just think she's a great ambassador for boxing. And I've got nothing bad to say about Katie Taylor. The only one thing I will say, it's not bad. some pros out there, some of these prospects out there are all about the 1-2 and the double jab cross, and they keep it simple. They want to watch Katie Taylor when she throws combinations. She throws some beautiful combinations. I love the pullback left up counter that she throws. Really, really great shot. And I just think she's got great feet and great hands, and I could watch her all day, mate.
All right. Jordan Gill, the frill, 28-year-old against 36-year-old Martinez. Martinez has had 57 fights. Jordan Gill, 30. Twice the experience, twice the ring IQ. Do you think Jordan Gill got exposed?
I'll give him a coach's assessment of Jordan Gill. And this is not a criticism of anybody. So, ex-coaches, by the way. Right, so Jordan Gill, when you've got a fighter who can't punch, and when I say someone can't punch, I'm talking about the context of against other good professional boxers. Jordan Gill can't really punch. He has a low punch percentage. He's not a banger. If you can't punch, there's two things you need. One, you got to have really great core strength. We talked about Floyd holding that spot ring center. He doesn't have great core strength. Or you better be able to defend in the pocket, because at some point, yeah, when you get walked down, you got to be able to defend in the pocket. And sometimes that needs that core strength. So his weaknesses were badly exposed there once again. I didn't buy, I remember his first defeat a couple of years ago, whenever it was, 3-4 years ago. He got soundly beat. And I didn't buy all the excuses. I just thought he got exposed for the first time. There's nothing wrong with being exposed, by the way, at European level or international level. That everybody's got a level. But it doesn't have great core strength. So that's a failing, really, in what they should be looking to plug. And he doesn't have inside close-up defense. You're getting caught by a guy who's so short, over the top, underneath with the uppercut. There's so many deficiencies there. And yeah, he got badly exposed at that level, which is fine, that happens. I thought, watching the highlights, again, I'm not seeing the full fight in context, so I have to be careful. As a coach, no, what I didn't see was, like sometimes the commentators, they don't mention anything at all. You could see his nose got badly broke. It was horrific. He got smashed. It looked like the knockdown, the first knockdown, I hadn't seen the replays, looked like a solid jab. It was a boom, and the nose went completely to the point that the eyes blackened really quickly. His eyes were weeping. That's an horrific thing to deal with in a fight.